Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Dane, your host of the Rocky Metal Guardian. Hope you're having a great day. Have you ever found yourself in a great state of anticipation or a great state of anxiety for one of your favorite artists or bands to come out with something new, whether it be a new studio album or a new live album? Of course you have. We've all been there, right? And finally the day comes and you hear that they've put something out that's new and you get it, it comes in the mail or whatever, or you go get it, or someone gives it to you as a gift and it's a disappointment, right? Or you get it, however you got it, right, and it's fabulous. So today I'm going to talk about my top 25 favorite comeback albums of all time, because you get something and you don't like it and the day finally comes, however long, and it's what you were looking for, hoping to hear, right? So let's jump right in. Number 25 is the Cream album, the live album, live at the Royal Albert Hall in London from 2005. If you're a Cream fan and you don't have this, you need to get it. Now, it's not available, I don't think, anymore on CD, let alone vinyl, if it ever came out on vinyl. Last I checked, you could still get it from third-party sellers, though. But they're asking a pretty penny. Try Discogs. Sometimes they're cheaper than, say, Amazon, that sort of thing. Try Amazon UK even. But you can still get it in MP3 format. That's how I got it. And it's like these three gentlemen are in their 20s still playing when you listen to it. It's that good. I'm not exaggerating. So 25, live at the Royal Albert Hall, Cream, 2005. In a similar vein, 24, an even better reunion comeback album, Led Zeppelin's Celebration Day. This is 2012, and of course Jason Bonham plays the drums in lieu of his dad, right? And you get it's a nice package. Unfortunately, this is not available last time I checked on CD either. I was going to get it a while back. I got this when it first came out, thank goodness. I was going to get this a couple years ago for a friend of mine. She loves Led Zeppelin, but she doesn't like anything used. That's a peeve of hers. I get it too, sometimes that way. And you have 2 CDs and 2 DVDs. It's a nice package. You get a booklet. If you can get it, I highly recommend. Again, try Discogs. The song listings, I'm not going to read it all, but the song choices are fabulous. And the DVD follows the same. It's the same concert live at the O2 Arena. And disc 1, I will tell you, ends with a fabulous version of No Quarter. And you get Whole Lotta Love as the penultimate track on disc 2. This is not The Song Remains the Same. This is not even How the West Was Won, but it's still very good. You have to get this in some fashion. If you're a Zeppelin fan and you don't have this, get it. So, number 24. Number 23 is Harvest Moon from Neil Young. And in the 80s, he had some snoozers, right? Some really disappointing albums like Trans and Landing on Water, which are probably the two of his albums that are panned the most by critics and fans alike, definitely me as well. But then you get albums that I like Life, This Note's for You, Freedom, and Ragged Glory. 2 of those are with Crazy Horse. And while I like those, it's not till Harvest Moon that we have Neil Young doing a true return to form. And of course the title is meant to be an homage, if not a part 2, to the 70s album Harvest. It has that same vibe. At least I think it does. And I think, of course, that's what Young was going for. So coming in at number 23, Harvest Moon by Neil Young. Number 22, turning to thrash metal now, is Endgame by Megadeth. Here's the back. And you get great songs like Dialectic Chaos, the instrumental, which found its way on one of the NHL video games for PlayStation and Xbox, right? This Day We Fight, Bite the Hand, Bodies, the title track Endgame, The Hardest Part of Letting Go, Sealed with a Kiss, Head Crusher, of course, is another hit off of here. How the Story Ends, and the closer, The Right to Go Insane. Now, while I like cryptic writings and I even like Risk, I listen to those quite often, this is again a return to true form for Megadeth. Some have argued that The System Has Failed is a comeback album. I get that, but I think this is more of a return to form that The System Has Failed is. Chris Poland plays on a song or two on that one, but I think this is more sounding like the Megadeth that I know and love. I don't like The World Needs a Hero that much. There's a couple songs, but I thought that was a falling off. I even like Risk better than that one. I know that's blasphemous, but anyway, sorry. Megadeth Endgame coming in at number 22. Number 21, Celtic Frost's Monotheist. Different lineup, but this is the Celtic Frost you'll know and love. At least for me it is. You get songs like Progeny, Ground, A Dying God Coming into Human Flesh. That's my favorite song on the album. Drown in Ashes, Obscure Domain of Decay, and you get some tracks and other bonus tracks that are, I can't even pronounce the titles. But this comes on the wave of two albums that were so disappointing. A lot of people panned them as well, and critics too. I'm talking about Cold Lake. One Cherry Orchid was the hit off that. They were trying to do the glam metal thing that didn't work, and then the follow-up to that was less of that, more of a return to heaviness with Vanity / Nemesis, but still not very good. This is the true comeback album. Of course, unfortunately, they broke up not long after this, and of course, Thomas Gabriel Warrior formed Triptychon, which is very much like this, and Celtic Frost, of course. All right, now the next one, I'm cheating a little bit, and my next band is Nine Inch Nails, and I'm going to say that these are EPs. So instead of a comeback album, we have 3 EPs that act as a comeback album. And while Bad Witch is considered a full-blown LP, it's only 30 minutes. Nowadays, it's hard to figure out what's an EP and what's an LP, because you have EPs that are longer than some LPs and vice versa, so it's really weird. This is 30 minutes and change. I'm counting this as an EP. So Bad Witch, Addicted to Violence, and then not the actual events. These come out pretty quickly, back to back to back, if I'm not mistaken. This is my favorite of the trilogy. Check these out if you're not familiar. So while we have albums that I like, such as Hesitation Marks, The Slip before that, Ghost 1 through 4, and the other Ghosts I really like, but not the Nine Inch Nails that I love. I like the piano of Ghost and Adrian Belew and other guests playing on that. It's very different and experimental, and I like it, but it's not the Nine Inch Nails that's true to form. And of course, you have With Teeth that I like, a solid record, but not great. And then Year Zero I thought was a little bit below average. So these for me are a true comeback for Nine Inch Nails. Now, the next one is number 19, The Last Temptation by Alice Cooper. Now, some of you argue, well, what about Constrictor and Raise Your Fist and Yell? Those are comeback albums in a sense. They are, sorry, not in a sense, they are, because they're better. Those two are better than the Blackout albums, where Alice Cooper says in an interview or 2 or 3 where he has no recollection of making the albums in the 80s, and that those Blackout, and they're called the Blackout albums because he blacked out, right? Because of substance abuse. So those would be not in this order. Dada was the last one, and then before that, Zipper Catches Skin, and then Special Forces, I believe. The one before that, Flush the Fashion, has been argued to be part of that Blackout period, but others say no. Alice did not mention that one, as far as I know, as part of the period. And that while that's a new wave and he's experimenting, and I like when Alice experiments, that's, like David Bowie, right? And that one works, Flush the Fashion. I love that. I love him doing, and it's a short album, I love him doing a new wave album, even though I'm not the biggest new wave person. And I do like the I do like the Blackout albums for what they are, but they're not the Alice Cooper I know and love. And I do like Constrictor, and I do like Raise Your Fist and Yell. Him keeping up with the times and doing a more hair metal-y thing. Then after that, you get Trash, which is Bon Jovi hair metal. Him doing Bon Jovi hair metal. And what I mean by that, it sounds like Alice decided to do a Bon Jovi record because you have, Now, I like the song Poison, but that's it. The rest of the album sounds like, as I said, Bon Jovi, sorry to be repetitive, but you have Desmond Child co-writing the lyrics, and I'm not much of a Desmond Child fan at all. I like some of the stuff he did with Kiss and Meatloaf, but that's where it ends. So to me, this is Alice Cooper trying to fit in too much. I like the other two hair metal-y albums. This one is just way too commercial for my blood. And while I like, again, the previous hair metal-y albums with Constrictor and Raise Your Fist and Yell, for me personally, his true comeback album is The Last Temptation. Now, I do like Hey Stupid, and I like that, as I said, and it's also very hair metal-y. You got some guest stars like Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue and others. And thank God it's not a Bon Jovi sounding album. But again, Alice returning true to form is what I mean by comeback album for him. And so that would be The Last Temptation, another Steven concept album, but this time it's in the vein of, because Alice Cooper has, at this point in his career, become a born-again Christian. And so it's a Steven album, but it doesn't end as a nightmare. It's a positive message. Of course, he returns to the Steven nightmarish stuff with Along Came a Spider. But for this for me is where it's at. This is for me, again, personally, Alice Cooper's true comeback album. All right, number 18 is Two Steps from the Move by Hanoi Rocks. And while I love their debut album, Bangkok Shocks, etc., Saigon Shakes, Hanoi Rocks, right? I don't care much for Oriental Beat. There's a couple songs I like, and I do not like at all Back to Mystery City. So, sorry, that was the cat. And sometimes he scares himself coming out of the blinds because he's sunbathing. But anyway, so back to Two Steps from the Move. Bob Ezrin produced this, and it sounds like an Alice Cooper record. Not just because it's produced. Even Michael Monroe sounds a little bit like Alice, and that's a nice treat. Doesn't sound exactly like an Alice Cooper, no, but it has that vibe about it, even in the vocals. And of course, this is the album that inspired Axl Rose to write the song "Welcome to the Jungle." Anyway, so Two Steps from the Move by Hanoi Rocks comes in at number 18. Coming in at number 17 is the self-titled Heart album called Heart. Now, this is a very commercial album, and it's leagues apart from the first 5 albums, the debut through and including Baby Lestrange, I believe, which are just hard at their best. And that's when they were a band. Now it's the Nancy and Ann Wilson show. Even this is that as well, but at least it's still got some rockin' moments. You had some more commercial. You have a new drummer and a new bass player, but you still have Herman in the band on guitar. So you have 3 of the original 5 members. There's no flute, unfortunately, like the early stuff, but it's still a great album. And interestingly enough, my favorite critic, Martin Popoff, has talked about how he doesn't like this album. He doesn't get it as a comeback album. For him, he likes the 2 that come before that, which are Passion Works and Private Audition, which for me I think are awful. But Martin, it's his opinion, and he's just a great critic all around. And I respect his opinion. I just don't get it. And that's what's great about music. We all have our own taste and personal beliefs and ideas and pet peeves and what we think is a fantastic record or a masterpiece and what in our estimation is garbage. So I'm the opposite when it comes to Martin's take on it, but he's just a great critic. I love watching him talk about music on YouTube and whatnot and his podcasts. So Heart number 17, the self-titled, is my comeback album for that band. Number 17, my 17th favorite comeback album of all time. Coming in at number 16 is the Motorhead album Sacrifice, and this comes out on the wake of 1916 rock and roll. Rock and roll was first, then 1916 March or Die and Bastards. I'm not a big fan of March or Die or Bastards at all, although I like the song Hellraiser. I like 1916 quite a bit. Rock and roll is okay, but this, for me, Sacrifice is the real true to form for me. You have songs, you have the title track, Sex and Death, Over Your Shoulder, War for War, Order/Fade to Black, my favorite song on the album, Dog Face Boy, my least favorite, All Gone to Hell, Make 'Em Blind, Don't Waste Your Time, In Another Time, and the great closing track, Out of the Sky. So again, 16, Sacrifice by Motorhead. Coincidentally, number 15 is also a Motorhead album, and that is Inferno. This is perhaps their heaviest album of all. And many people have said they don't like it, including critics, because they said it's not the hard rock in Motorhead we know and love. It's too heavy. It's not them being themselves. I'm sorry, I love this. It has Terminal Show, Killers, In the Name of Tragedy, Down on Me, In the Black, Fight, In the Year of the Wolf, Keys to the Kingdom, and Whorehouse Blues, the acoustic number, which Mickey D even plays acoustic guitar on with Phil Campbell. This is solid. I'm sorry, this is better than solid. This is very good, if not great. You know what? I'm going to say it. This is a great album. That's how I really feel. And this comes on the wake of Overnight Sensation, which I like, Snakebite Love, which I thought was terrible. There's one good song on it. Everyone knows that was rushed because they were touring. We Are Motorhead and Hammered. Those last two I don't like at all, and I even gave them to a friend of mine. I'm not going to have something in my collection if I'm never going to listen to it. I do have Overnight Sensation because I do like that one, but this is their second comeback album. So their first comeback album for me is Sacrifice, and then we get some snoozers after that, or below average albums, and then this is a great second comeback from Motorhead. So that's why I have two Motorhead albums: Sacrifice number 16, and then Inferno at number 15. All right. Number 14 is Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell 2. I like Dead Ringer quite a bit, but Bat Out of Hell 2 is just, and I'm not the only person to say this, that it's really, unfortunately, the three Bat Out of Hell albums that are Meatloaf at his best. There's some other material there that I like, but like some of Dead Ringer, half of it maybe. But these are the albums that, this is just where Meatloaf is shining the brightest. So Bat Out of Hell 2 coming in at number 14. Number 13, Alice in Chains, Black Gives Way to Blue. When I first heard this, I was totally blown away. The follow-up is okay, but this is my favorite of the non-Lane Staley albums. And of course, it's a comeback album because Lane Staley passes away. Is Alice in Chains coming back or not? And they do, and what a way to come back. This is a great album, I think. It's that good. So Black Gives Way to Blue, Alice in Chains without Lane. Still missed today. Number 12, their final album, Thin Lizzy's Thunder and Lightning. Their only heavy metal album. News from the cover, right? A little cheesy, but I still like it. And then you have the lightning bolt on the back, closer up. And you have songs, Thunder and Lightning, the title track, of course. This is the one, The Sun Goes Down, The Holy War, Cold Sweat, which became a cover tune for Megadeth, Someday She's Going to Hit Back, Baby Please Don't Go, Bad Habits, and Heart Attack, 1983. I remember seeing one of the VGs on MTV talking about new releases, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Now, why is this a comeback album for me? I don't care for Chinatown all that much, and this Blasphemy. There's a couple songs I like, and Renegade, I like maybe 2 songs. This for me is a comeback album. So, Thin Lizzy, Thunder and Lightning, coming in at number 12. Now, on the cusp of my top 10, Judas Priest, Redeemer of Souls. Sorry, not Angel of Retribution. So if we talk about some of the history of Judas Priest, we get the near god-awful Turbo. We get the god-awful Ram It Down. Then we get Painkiller. Now, some have argued Painkiller is the true comeback album, and I'm going to disagree. I like Painkiller, but I think a lot of people hail this as a comeback album because compared to what came before, Ram It Down and Turbo, they use that as their, comparison. Oh, this is so much better, and it is so much better, but still, for me personally, not true to form. This is even closer in my estimation to Judas Priest's return to form. Of course, after Painkiller, you get Jugulator and Demolition without Rob Halford, And of course, Angel of Retribution is the comeback with Rob Halford because he's come back to the band. So some will argue Painkiller's come back because of the two that came out previous to that. Halford's still in the band. Some will argue that Angel of Retribution is the comeback album because Halford was out and now he's back. This one for me, and this is the bonus disc version. Even without the bonus disc, I still think this is more of a comeback. This sounds like Judas Priest I love. So if you have not heard Redeemer of Souls, this is fantastic. All right. Now, cracking my top 10, Strange Highways from Dio. And you have Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost, Firehead, Strange Highways, the title track, Hollywood Black, Evolution, Pain, One Foot in the Grave, Give Her the Gun, Blood from a Stone, Here's to You, and Bring Down the Rain. Great way to end an album. And story goes that a song or two off of here, Dio stole from the cutting room floor when they were doing Dehumanizer, and then Iommi got mad even though he didn't like the song. I don't know how true that is, but this sounds like, this has the same vibe as Dehumanizer. And so while I love the previous album, Lock Up the Wolves, this is even better. So this for me is a true comeback album for Dio. Because I'm not a big fan of Sacred Heart, Dream Evil. Okay. Now, moving on to number 9, David Bowie. So, David Bowie, most of his catalog, I think, is fantastic. But you have some albums that I just don't care for. I'm sorry, there are some albums by him that I don't care for, Don't want to put words in people's mouths. Some of you will like these. I don't. Tonight. I like one song on Tonight, and that's Sleeping with the Alien, something like that. That goes to show how often I listen to it. Never Let Me Down. It's got Peter Frampton on it, and I still don't like it. So, even worse, Black Tie, White Noise, and that was an album he made as an honor his wife Iman as a marriage gift, right? And then the Buddha of Suburbia. So this is the trilogy of terror, as I call it. Tonight is bad. Never Let Me Down is worse. And Black Tie, White Noise is even worse. And then Buddha of Suburbia has a couple songs I like, but doesn't do much for me. And so the comeback album for me is Outside, a concept album, and Tony Visconti, Brian Eno on this, I do believe, helping with the production. One of the two, I forget which, if not both of them. Let's see. Produced by Bowie and Eno. Okay, so Eno. Let's see if Visconti's on here at all. Yeah, I don't see his name. So it's Brian Eno. So reworking with his buddy Eno, and this was supposed to be first of a trilogy that he was going to work with Brian Eno on, but that did not happen, whether fortunately or fortunately. And there we go, got it back in without breaking it. But either way, Eno or no Eno after this, of course, no Eno. Everything after this, until the day he died, everything and including this, are fantastic. One of the highlights besides this is Heathen, and just one of the highlights. Perhaps the weakest in the chain to end his, leading up to the end of his last album, Black Star, is Hours, and I like maybe half of that. But almost everything is fantastic. There are days where I like Hours more than others. It's kind of a weird album that way. And so Bowie's one of those rare artists, because my theory is, just from my ears and my experience, is that there are so many bands who have really big discographies, and that's the back third or back half of the catalog I just don't like. But Bowie's one of the exceptions to the rules. His last third or half of his catalog is just phenomenal. He's just got 4 albums in the chain. Everything else, so he's got like 25, 26 studio albums, and there's like 4 of them that are bad. That's still a great percentage. All right, so that's why Bowie's one of the greatest artists of all time. He's my favorite of all time. All right, so coming in at number 8. Hold on a second, everybody. Here we go. Coming in at number 8 is Uriah Heep's Firefly. This is a 2-for album. I got the box set 2 summers ago, and unfortunately, they have 2 albums in one. This is Firefly and High and Mighty, and you can't see, but you can kind of see the Firefly symbol is superimposed on top of the upside down gun with wings. I hated that they did that. But anyway, so Firefly is the first album in the trilogy with John Lawton on vocals coming in from Lucifer's Friend. And you get the Hanging Tree, Been Away Too Long, Who Needs Me, Wise Man, Do You Know, Rolling On, Sympathy, my favorite song on the album. My second favorite song is entitled Firefly is fabulous. So this is a great album. This is one of my favorite Uriah Heep albums of all time. I love John Lawton's voice. And this is the best of the 3. The 2 that follow I like, Innocent Victim and Fallen Angel, but this is my favorite of the 3. Those are good, but this one is fantastic. And so before this album, you had Return of Fantasy with David Byron on vocals, and you had High and Mighty, and those are okay, but I like this one better. So this is even though it's a different vocalist, this is a great comeback album, because Return to Fantasy and High and Mighty, as I said, were kind of weak. So I like every song on here. This is a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. And then, like Motorhead, I have 2 from the same band. So Firefly was number 8. Number 7 is Abominog. Now we're getting into the Peter Golby trilogy. This is again from the same box set. You have the Abominog or abomination of this monkey devilish creature, and then the bottom you have the desert from the Head First album, Head First and Abominog. And there's some covers on Abominog, but doesn't matter. Uriah Heep makes it their own. You have Too Scared to Run, Chasing Shadows, On the Rebound, Hot Night in a Cold Town, Running All Night with the Lion, That's the Way That It Is, Prisoner, Hot Persuasion, Sell Your Soul, and Think It Over. My four favorite songs on here, not necessarily in this order, are Too Scared to Run, That's the Way That It Is fabulous, Prisoner, and Think It Over. And Sell Your Soul would be the heavy metal song. This does not sound like a heavy metal album. When I first bought this, I'm a teenager, and I go to Silmire House with my mom. Actually, I went by myself over the bus after school, and I purchased it, and I bring this to the woman behind the counter, and she looked at me like I was the most evil person in the world because of this album cover. And I'm 13 or 14, and I've told the story before, but I could not look at this album cover for the longest time, and so I made an album cover out of grocery bags that fit right in, and I made my own art cover with Uriah Heep in orange and yellow flames, so my mom and dad couldn't see it. And then, years later, it doesn't bother me. When as an English teacher, I teach a short story to my reading class called A Monkey's Paw, and there's that scene near the end where they're looking at the fireplace, the family is, and they see a monkey's face in the flames, and so that's what this album cover reminds me of. Anyway, Abominog coming in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is the Kiss album, Creatures of the Night, because before this, speaking of Abominog, the reason why this is a comeback album is because before this you had Conquest with John Sloman, and a lot of people thought John Sloman was the next Robert Plant. Unfortunately, no. I like him as a vocalist, I like his voice. I'm not sure I get the connection, but anyway, Conquest was a failure, I think, all around. There are people who like it. I don't like it at all, despite the fact that I like John Sloman's voice. There's just something off about it. So this is a comeback album. Sorry, I meant to give you the explanation. So back to Kiss, Creatures of the Night, number 6, because before this you had Music from the Elder and Unmasked. I like Dynasty. Anyway, so Creatures of the Night, the title track, Saint and Sinner, Keep Me Coming, Rock and Roll Hell, Danger, I Love It Loud, I Still Love You, Killer, and the amazing War Machine, one of my favorite Gene songs of all time. I remember in high school, is it high school? 1982, yeah, freshman in high school. Remember my good friend saying, "Oh, Kiss with a comeback album, yay," and absolutely. All right. Now this next one is also near and dear to my heart, and that is Perfect Strangers from Deep Purple. Knocking at Your Back Door, Under the Gun, Nobody's Home, Mean Street, the title track, A Gypsy's Kiss, Wasted Sunsets, Hungry Days, Not Responsible, and Son of Alaric, the bonus track, 10 minutes and 7 seconds long. Band on the back. When MTV played this for the first time, got goosebumps, and I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. When they played the title track for the first time, and you hear that Hammond organ kick in, wow. And you knew, right? This was going to be fabulous, and it is. And I remember working at Musicland in Baton Rouge, and this is years after this has come out, and I asked one of my coworkers, man, could you put Deep Purple in for me? Just surprise me. And he put this in. And when Perfect Strangers came on, we looked at each other, and we're like, yeah. And the Hammond organ, right? This is just fabulous. Great comeback album. Next, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. And it's a comeback album because after Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, this was a nice treat, refreshing. Of course, you have a new singer in Ronnie James Dio, but we knew him from Rainbow, and it works. And you've got Neonites, Children of the Sea, Heaven and Hell, and Lonely is the Word of my 4 favorite songs. And then Lady Evil's a good song, but Wishing Well and Die Young, kind of filler for me. Walk Away is a bit of a filler, but still, this is a really good album. So it's coming in at number 4, Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath. Now, I'm wondering if you can figure out what my favorite one is, but we'll get to that in 2 albums. Number 3, Vapor Trails from Rush. Now, the albums that came before this, in order: Power Windows, Hold Your Fire, Presto, Roll the Bones, Counterparts, Test for Echo. All of those have songs that I like on them. But Power Windows and Hold Your Fire, there's only one song I like. Power Windows has 2 or 3. Presto has 2, the opening and closing. Roll the Bones has 3 songs that I like. The rest of it is just too bubbly for me. Counterparts, I like it, but it's still... I know people love it, and they say that's their comeback album. Alex says that's when they got heavy again. It's heavier compared to the ones... This is heavier, okay? Is this the Rush from the 70s? No, but this is the comeback album for me. Test for Echo, I like 2 songs, maybe 3. So for me personally, Vapor Trails, the opening track with the drum intro, One Little Victory, it's so heavy. And then, yeah, it's not heavy through and through, but it's very emotive. And it gets my adrenaline going in an emotional way, if that makes sense. So this is my favorite. This is my 3rd favorite comeback album of all time. So after Grace Under Pressure, I was disappointed after disappointment after disappointment. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those 6 albums after Grace Under Pressure were one disappointment after another, with some good songs, but overall they were disappointments. And I know people are gonna hold me to the fire about Counterparts, as I said, but I can't help the way that I feel. I love this all the time. I mean, I listen to this all the time. I love this. It's one of my favorite Rush albums. I barely listen to Counterparts. I listen to this all the time. So this is my comeback album for Rush. Number 2, Aerosmith, Rockin' the Hard Place. I don't like anything by Aerosmith after this. Now, why is this a comeback album? Because I do not like Night in the Ruts very much. I like the cover song, Remember Walking in the Sand, and maybe 1 or 2 other songs. There's something off about that album. And we know that this is where the decline in the addiction and all that. And I know even Martin Popoff likes A Night in the Ruts. He doesn't like this one very much, I don't believe. Even the band themselves have said this is not an Aerosmith album because Whitman and Perry aren't on it. Sounds like Aerosmith to me. The Aerosmith I know and love, not that Desmond Child pop stuff I can't stand. So Jailbait, I mean, you hit over the head with Jailbait, Lightning Strikes, and Bitches Brew. Come on, it's fabulous. Bolivian Ragamuffin is amazing. Cry Me a River, one of the greatest cover songs. Each album they do a cover song, right? Notice how I'm excited about this, just talking about it. Cry Me a River is a heavy it's not a heavy song, but the ending of it is. And when he belts that last part, the drums kick in, it's partially a heavy song. Kind of, it's a heavy song. So Cry Me a River, my favorite cover song by them. Prelude to Joni and Joni's Butterfly, perhaps the weakest pairings on the album. It's an intro with the main song. I still like it. The title track, Rock in a Hard Place, a subtitle, Cheshire Cat. Man, so heavy. And then Jig Is Up and Push Comes to Shove are not as good as what came before, but better than Joni's Butterfly. They're solid songs. This is a 9.5 out of 10. I love this album. My same friend in high school, when we were talking about Creatures of the Night, we said the same thing. This is a comeback album because we did not like and still don't like to this day A Night in the Ruts. So number 2. Can you guess what my number 1 is? Hopefully you picked it right. It's AC/DC's Back in Black. A 10 out of 10. Bon Scott passes away. They need someone to fill some really big shoes, right? And while Brian Johnson does not sound exactly like Bon Scott, he fit perfectly into the band. And this is their best album with Brian Johnson. I like some of the stuff that follows. But Back in Black, man, what a great album. Start to finish, Hell's Bells, right? Amazing. All right, honorable mentions. And like some of the albums I mentioned in my top 25, some of the bands have too. So let me talk about Molly Hatchet. No Guts, No Glory, 1983. The return of Danny Joe Brown on vocals. And on Beating the Odds, you had Jimmy Farrar, which I like. So No Guts, No Glory, that album cover where they're outside of the saloon, right? Looking like Banditos. Great album, great cover. And then their live album, Double Trouble, from 1985, also Danny Joe Brown vocals. So these are comeback albums for Molly Hatchet for me. Next is Iron Maiden, Brave New World, return of Bruce Dickinson, right? Did not care for the 2 albums with Blaze Bayley at all. Now, do I like the song Blood Brothers all that much? No, but this is as close as Maiden got to returning to true to form for me. I don't like much of what comes after, unfortunately. All right, Johnny Cash. It's a covers album, American recordings, but man, what a great covers album. And I'll leave it at that. Now this one may be cheating as well. Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz. It's a comeback for Ozzy, but it's not a Black Sabbath comeback album. But I'm gonna count it because Ozzy was not the Ozzy we know and love on Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, dealing with some personal issues, the loss of his father passing away, and then his addiction issues. And so this is a great return to form as far as that Ozzy sound. It sounds very Sabbathy, and of course to follow up to that even more. I mentioned Alice Cooper's Constrictor, and so I'm putting that as a follow-up, as a comeback album from the 3 albums that make up the blackout period. But I think the album I mentioned, a little brain bubble here. I think that The Last Temptation is more of a comeback album than Constrictor is, but I'm gonna put it here as well. All right, Queen, Innuendo, and The Miracle. I think The Miracle came first. I like maybe half of both of the songs on these albums, but I'm gonna count it because of what came before. Which, like Jazz, I don't like very much. The Game, I don't like very much. The album with Body Language, Hot Space, yeah, no. So this was more of the Queen that I know and love. I Want It All and songs of that nature. Now, have to include this next one. It has the word comeback in the title. But besides that, I really like this album. And I'm talking about Elvis's 68 comeback special. 7 years. It's a comeback album because he was away from music for 7 years because he was doing films. And when Elvis was alive, he disowned those movies. He said he didn't like them. My mom told me that growing up. If you can get the box set version of this, I highly recommend it. I only have the original 2 CD in MP3 format. And finally, kind of on the Ozzy front, not a band comeback, but I'm going to count it. I'm kind of cheating here. But David Coverdale's first solo album, Whitesnake, which started it all. He recuperates from being depressed from Deep Purple breaking up, because after Come Taste the Band, that was it. And then he comes back solid with a great debut studio solo record. It is not a Whitesnake album, as some people have argued. It is not, because then you get North Winds, which is still a studio album, and then you get his beginning Whitesnake with Trouble. Trouble's the first Whitesnake album. So David Coverdale coming in last but not least in my honorable mentions. So David Coverdale's Whitesnake, 2 words, as a comeback album. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please go ahead and click the notification button for all upcoming videos, and don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button to help this young channel grow. Thank you so much for watching. Have a pleasant day. See you soon. Bye.